All right, folks, it is Thursday, February 27th, 2025. And of course, a lot's going on in the world and around the world and all along those lines. And we'll be talking about those and seeing what folks have to say about a number of these things that are taking place and what they might be doing and all along those lines. We know that definitely politics is front and center at a lot of people's mind, but a lot of things are going on even in the Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts paused orders for Trump administration to pay $2 billion in foreign aid. So definitely that is something going on. And that was a pause where they were supposed to pay the foreign aid contractors by midnight. But now that has been paused. So that is a victory in that particular situation for President Trump. So definitely that's something folks will be talking about and all along those lines. So lots going on in that space, and we'll be definitely seeing what folks have to say about that. And the threat of Medicaid cuts looms over GOP lawmakers. So GOP and DFL Minnesota lawmakers speak out against possible Medicaid cuts. And Johnson insists Republicans won't cut entitlements to pay for Trump's agenda. The Republicans are pushing forward on Medicaid changes despite potential political fallout. And Adam Mansani, the Super Bowl reporter that was found dead in a New Orleans hotel, had a sedative drug in his system, according to what police are reporting. So the reporter that was found dead had sedative in his system, also seized from the suspect's home. So bond denied for women linked to that sports reporter's death. So definitely looks like folks are talking about that as well. And they were saying it was a Bourbon Street hustler meetup that is when this particular situation happened and all along those lines. And Trump and Musk slash and burn tactics are a sticking point in talks to prevent a shutdown. So Republicans dig in heels against restricting Trump's power in shutdown talks, and Mike Johnson eyes a solo approach to avoid the government shutdown. And the Trump memo tells federal agencies how to conduct mass layoffs. So federal jobs are precarious right now. And here's where Americans can find stable work, according to an article in Market Watch, if you want to go check that out. So there might be some places where jobs are still being out there in the federal work landscape. And the EU is pushing back against hard against Trump's tariff threats and his caustic comments that block is out to get the U.S. So in the foreign policy, there was a article saying note to Europe, stay calm and don't retaliate. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Donald Trump has added the gold card to the global cash for visas competition. So Trump just put a cover charge on America, according to Desi Lydic in the New York Times. And President Trump's $5 million gold card tax loophole is what some people are saying as well. So Trump was pitching that U.S. gold card. And I know we've heard that other countries, I think Spain and others, have these kind of cards as well. But it ought to be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. And Epstein client list release could be imminent after Blackburn pushes for transparency. Let's get them jailed is what's being reported in Fox News. So the U.S. Attorney General hopes to release Epstein-related flight logs and names on Thursday. And Bondi hoping to release that as well. So we'll see if there's some names on there that could get some folks in trouble on both sides, maybe the Democrats and the Republicans, and all along those lines. And Trump cuts a financial lifeline for Venezuela by ending permit to export oil to the U.S. So oil climbs after Trump cancels the Chevron's Venezuela license and all along those lines. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. Trump says he's terminating Chevron's Venezuela oil agreement, and definitely it looks like he is nixing the concessions granted by his predecessor, Joe Biden. And Barnard College takeover a campus building in Gaza. Protests marked by assault. So anti-Israeli protesters allegedly assaulted an employee during a building takeover at Barnard College in New York City. So Barnard College has employees injured when pro-Palestinian protesters stormed the building. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Trump administration to cut 92% of U.S. foreign aid contract. That's being reported as well. So definitely folks will be paying attention to that. And definitely a number of countries could be suffering in that regard as well. And Ukraine hopes its mineral deal will dig it out of a hole with Trump. The U.S. warns Ukraine's critical minerals and the security guarantees missing from the Ukraine minerals deal. So we'll see what happens in this particular place as well. And is anybody unhappy with Elon? What Donald Trump said about Musk in his cabinet meeting, and Musk had a cabinet cameo. So definitely, it looks like there was Musk making an appearance, and of course, there was all the cabinet members, including Kristi Noem and RFK Jr. and a number of others, as they were having their first official cabinet meeting. I believe that was yesterday. And Trump Gaza is finally here. U.S. president is promoting Gaza plan in an AI video. So fantasy AI video shared by Trump of Gaza as a luxury resort drew scorn on yesterday. So Trump Gaza video shared by the president originated from a pro-Israeli accounts that have embraced AI. So definitely we'll see what goes on in that space. And as Elon Musk continues sweeping cuts to the U.S. government, folks are definitely paying attention to what's going on there. Apparently, it was named that Amy Gleason, even though she was in Mexico, is the acting administrator of Doge, according to what the White House is saying, and all along those lines. So they're saying that she is the one running Doge, or is at least the acting administrator in that regard. So we'll see what folks have to say about that as well. And the state of the state takeaways, fact checks from Gretchen Whitmer's big speech. So Michigan Democratic Governor Whitmer made a direct appeal to young men and everything along those lines. So definitely she called for bipartisan efforts, and she announced a water rate hike in her remarks and everything like that. So a lot of even the states are trying to figure out what they're going to do as they move forward in 2025. And White House Correspondents Association seized control of pool reports to Trump. So in Trump, Washington, a Moscow-like shield takes hold, and definitely there's folks that are complaining about this as well. And Trump firing of military brass prompts concern, but little pushback from Republicans. So no time to waste. Navy's ousted top officer speaks to staff after the DOD leadership shakeup. So Trump nominates Dan Raisin Kane to be the Joint Chiefs Chairman. So definitely we got some new leadership across the board, even in the military. And the GOP gambles on budget plan that helps the rich and cuts aid to the poor. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out as a messy House-Senate battle takes shape over fate of the Trump agenda. So the Senate GOP plots changes to the House passed blueprint for the Trump agenda. And the DHS, Registry for Migrants in U.S., illegally raises alarms from immigration advocates. So immigration officials say everyone living in the U.S. illegally must register, and that's something that's being put out there as well. So lots going on in that regards. And Texas lottery drawing that paid out big jackpots are the focus of a widening investigation. So definitely that's going on as investigation into the Texas lottery grow after a courier controversy. So Texas bans the lottery of couriers and investigates 2 major jackpot wins using the online ticket service. And the Senate defeats Democratic resolution to end Trump's energy emergency. So Dem bid to end Trump energy emergency squashed after a forced Senate vote. So after a month of Trump's pro-oil and gas moves, Dems targeted his energy emergency on yesterday. And Trump continues to vow to unleash oil and gas drilling. Workers in Oklahoma are hoping for a boom. And Trump says Ukraine should look to Europe for any security guarantees. So Senator Schiff reacts to Trump saying U.S. won't make Ukraine security guarantees beyond very much. Trump says no significant security guarantees in Ukraine mineral deal. And Trump says EPA layoffs will cut staff by 65%. So the EPA chief is eyeing a 65% workforce reduction, according to what Trump is saying. And Trump had said deep cuts at the EPA, alarming workers and environmental groups. So White House says Trump meant EPA will cut 65% of spending, not the staff. That's what they are saying as they kind of went back on that and all along the line. So we'll see what this all means and what goes on in this space as well. So lots going on, as I said, in the world, and definitely we'll see how this all plays out and what folks have to say about that. Supreme Court signals it will make it easier for Americans to file reverse discrimination cases. So the Supreme Court posed to rule for the straight woman in a discrimination case, and a straight woman from Ohio is the focal point of a discrimination lawsuit that could reshape the legal landscape. And NIH partially lifts freeze on funding process for medical research. So Trump's proposed NIH cuts expose one of the worst kept secrets in academia. So Trump administration loophole snags U.S. research grant from Lyme to lung disease. So definitely there's a lot going on in there. And some of those things might be things that need to be researched. And thousands of University of California workers go on strike, alleging unfair bargaining. So UC Davis health workers joined tens of thousands of UC staff across the state in a 3-day strike, and all along those lines. So definitely that's stuff that people are paying attention to as well. And in the mediation talks and picking to continue as the New York CEO's strike stretches to day 10. So Afghanistan was better. New York National Guard members on prison duty. So that's what they're talking about with their prison duty. So mediation efforts to end statewide strikes at correctional facilities enters their 3rd day. Well, actually more days than that. And it looks like folks are striking New York prison workers being arrested. What to know on I think it's probably day 11 of the strike. It ain't over. New York Governor Hochul vows to fight Trump's congestion pricing ban. Trump wants congestion pricing dead by March 21st. Not so fast, MTA says. So feds give MTA deadline to kill New York City congestion pricing tolls, and congestion pricing is something that folks are thinking about in the Northeast. And Trump endorsed Byron Donalds, makes a run for Florida governor official. So definitely Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump clash over the 2026 Florida governor's race. And Donald responds to DeSantis by record in the state legislature speaks for itself. And definitely looks like a lot of folks are still paying attention to all these cuts as well. And they're saying that the Department of Education cuts could hurt resources for students with disabilities. So that's something that even I know Jatobia has talked about as well. So amid risk to the education department, borrowers should immediately take key actions, consumer advocates say. So there's a lot going on in there as well. And Trump says Mexico-Canada tariffs will start March 4th, plus additional 10% on China. So Canada and Mexico tariffs still on track for next week, despite cabinet confusion. So President Donald Trump is imposing tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China. So it looks like they could take place as early as the beginning of next month in the early parts of next week. So definitely that's something that folks will be talking about as well, and seeing how this all plays out and what goes on in that situation as well. So like I said, that's some of the things taking place in the world and around the world. So definitely I've got Rick Rosner with me. We'll see what he's got going his mind as well. And if anybody else joins in this lovely discussion. And we've also got a person that is joining the whole notion of coming to the U.S. So Andrew Tate has left Romania for the U.S. And some people are saying that he is a misogynistic influencer, but apparently the Trump administration had been pressing Romania to lift the restrictions on Andrew Tate, and it looks like he and his brother have left Romania for the U.S. after that travel ban was lifted, and even Trump and Sturmer are at odds over security guarantees for Ukraine ahead of critical talks in that whole Russian-Ukraine conflict and everything like that. And they're also saying that North Korea is sending more troops to Russia and that's what South Korean spy agencies are reporting as well. So there's a lot going on in that space. It just seems like we're having turmoil all over the world, including Hamas handed over 4 bodies in the last hostage release of current ceasefire phase, and Thailand deporting dozens of Uyghurs to China. So we just got conflicts going left and right and everything. How are you doing today, Rick?
I don't know. I like stuff where there's a number attached to it.
Uh-huh.
Like the Lakers they got Doncic, and I have $1 because I got devastated in my online betting when I kept betting for Kamala Harris to win, and so I basically had $1 left, and I put $1 on the Lakers winning 50 games this season, and they're on track to do that. And then I've been paying attention to the price of eggs, which remains above $8 a dozen, national average.
Well, that's good that the price of eggs is going on and you got some money that you might be winning. I saw somebody turn me on.
With my dollar, I can buy an egg.
One egg. You can get one egg.
Yeah, well, if I win $1 and then plus the dollar I get back, then 2 eggs.
2 eggs. That could be really good and everything. A friend of mine was turning me on to another podcast. I think it's an audio podcast and everything like that. And apparently they claim that they just like to deconstruct the news. And they said that they weren't biased, but the report I heard, they did seem a little bit slightly biased to the the right and everything. It was the one that Adam Curry does, and all along those lines. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but they were saying in the report that I heard yesterday that apparently something impossible has happened. Because I know we oftentimes talk about how the left doesn't have the same messaging. Jacoby oftentimes talks about it as the right and everything. But apparently in a latest poll, Joe Rogan is no longer at the top of the polls. I think in terms of downloads, Midas Touch is now ahead, speaking of numbers. So apparently Midas Touch, which is very liberal, is now ahead of Joe Rogan and everything like that. So I didn't know if you had heard this, that the Midas Touch.
Not. I follow them on X. So that's good. They're good at messaging.
Yeah, they're good at messaging. And apparently they have knocked Joe Rogan off the top spot, at least for now, because I think they had, I want to say it was 55 million versus 50 million downloads, which of course Pod TV is nowhere near and everything. But apparently they have got some major downloads, and they were able to knock Joe Rogan off the top perch and everything. Now, whether they keep that, who knows? But apparently they did this recently. So I know you follow numbers. You just mentioned that. So how much should we pay attention to the numbers of podcasters? Because apparently podcasting has become the new way that folks are getting their news.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's like Hannity, who is big media. Hannity gets $35 million a year for going on Fox, but he says traditional media is dead, even though he gets paid $35 million to be traditional media. But these big podcasts, Rogan, Who's Your Daddy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're saying that now that they have dethroned Joe Rogan, that apparently they are going after Fox News. And that was reported yesterday that they were going to target Fox News, and maybe they're going to try to see if they can't get Fox News and all along those lines. So that'll be interesting, because they are definitely a very strong anti-Trump podcast. A lot of times when I do watch them, they are very much going after Trump and everything. So it's Brett, Ben, and Jordan Messler. And apparently they're looking to take on a new trophy after beating out Joe Rogan as the #1 podcast in America. So they want to beat Fox News in viewership. So now they're going for the viewership count and all along those lines. So I don't know whether they can pull it off or everything like that. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space.
Here's news from my neck of the woods. I grew up in Colorado and New Mexico, and Gene Hackman was found dead, I guess today, along with his wife and dog.
Gene Hackman, the actor?
Yeah, he was 95. His wife was 64. They're both dead. So's their dog. The cops are saying not foul play. So, yesterday, my wife says they were found. So people are wondering what would kill a guy and his wife and their dog all at once.
I don't know if you heard the news, but I know that you are one of those people that talks of messaging and everything. But apparently, the Midas Touch has knocked out Joe Rogan as the #1 podcast. And as you know, they are very liberal and considered progressive and anti-Trump. But apparently, these three brothers have knocked off Joe Rogan, and now they said that they're targeting Fox News and everything. So this was a number that was reported by Podscribe, which says that they received more than 57 million views and downloads this month. And in addition, on YouTube, they have over 4.1 million subscribers and everything like that. And I think that Joe Rogan has like around 50 million or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know much about Joe Rogan, to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever listened to his podcast. I did see a clip, so I knew very little about him. I saw a clip the other day where he's endorsing this guy called Dr. Malone. Dr. Malone, I've done a lot of research. The guy is a complete quack. He's a complete anti-vaxxer quack. And when I was looking at his endorsement, and this was all on LinkedIn, some of the people actually believed Joe Rogan. They were going, well, if Joe Rogan says it's got to be true. And he's backing Malone, who's a quack, who's an anti-vaxxer, who, as we well know, we've had our first death on measles in Texas. And we have 154 people that are infected. And your stupid idiot RFK just apparently suspended the meeting with the FDA to get to put the flu shots together. We've been doing for years to prevent people like me from getting sick and dying. So I'm really PO'd at this guy, Joe Rogan. And so I had to go look him up because I don't know the guy. You know what, Mark? I don't want to demean his educational credentials. Okay. He is really, really sharp. He's got a high school education, period, the endo. Okay. And you know what? I'm sorry. People sweat blood, study, they work hard to get medical degrees, to get law degrees, to get degrees in general, et cetera. And I hate to say it, it's very snotty, especially in the law. It depends on what law school you went to, the grade point average you had. I mean, it's pretty competitive to be smart. Rick knows that. I mean, it's a competitive thing.
Definitely.
This guy who's basically maybe has an IQ of 85. Not that I'm beating up people with low IQs. Maybe has an 85, and he's got how many followers? Do you say 50 million? Okay. So I had to do some research on people that have high school education because, I got my college degree and my high school degree at the same time when I was like 17 years old. And so I was going like, okay, how many people have high school education? How many people have college degrees? 30% of the United States, their biggest degree they have is a high school education. Well, 30% of 300 million is like 90 million. So I was going, who listens to basically an idiot that I wouldn't let him shine my shoes? It's those basically 90 million people who matriculated with a high school education. They think he's wonderful because they're stupid too. So my thoughts on Joe Rogan is, he's got 50 million morons following him. So I go, so what? Well, I used to say that on Pod TV. Our average commentator has a bloody PhD. So we don't get that many followers. But then, when you got people that are showing up with PhDs, JDs, MDs all the time, you're not getting the followers because there's not that many of them. There's more idiots than there are smart people, period. It's just like billionaires. So we got a lot of
I mean, that's part of the reason that people are saying that Trump won the election and everything. And I did have a question for you about Trump again, everything, because apparently Trump came out with this idea that you have touted before because he brought it up at his first cabinet meeting, but apparently he's offering this gold card to rich folks from around the world, and I think it was like some $1 million that they have to pay.
Yeah, it's like $500,000, but that's not unusual. The golden visas exist.
No, the golden visa for the U.S. is Trump wants to charge $5 million.
Oh, $5 million. Well, that's reasonable for the U.S. I mean, the thing is, when I was looking at houses in Barcelona versus Spain and New York, the house that I got would be cost about $1.6 million. I mean, the U.S. is a lot more expensive place. So $5 million for a golden visa is pretty reasonable. And he should have a golden visa program. It should be $5 million. Not everything Trump does is stupid, but let me tell you something. A lot of his followers are stupid people. They're just a bunch of stupid people.
But speaking of stupid people, Pam Bondi, and people have been wanting this to come out for a while because they say they've got a lot of names, including names of both Democrats and Republicans, but apparently the Epstein files will be released tomorrow, apparently, with flight logs and names, and who knows, maybe even
not completely. She says she's going to release some of the Epstein files.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's great. But let's talk about Pam Bondi, because she's from my hometown of Tampa, Florida. Okay, so I know a little bit about her. She went to Stetson Law School. My law partner also went to Stetson Law School. Frank Murphy, he graduated number 2 in his class. His sister, in a previous year, graduated number 1 in his class, in the class of Stetson Law School, which, by the way, if you go to law school, it's really hard to graduate 1 or 2 in your class. I can tell you that right now, because it's very intellectually competitive. Pam Bondi graduated from Stetson, period, the endo. That was it. She not magna cum laude, not anything. So she was basically an average law student. Now let's go look at Stetson Law School. Is it a top 50 school, top 100 school? No. It fits in the 100 to 200 category. It is not an elite law school by any stretch of the imagination. So now we go on further. Not that people do want to go on further, but if you apply to law jobs at really tough law firms that Trump never hires, like Covington and Burling, which he's right now in dispute with, or you go to Sherman and Sterling, or you go to Kravis, Swain and Moore, some of the top firms in the world, Pam Bondi would not even get a bloody interview. I'm not kidding. Because she didn't go to an elite law school, she didn't have elite grades, she had nothing to offer a top law school. However, she's the Attorney General of the United States. Now, with that, my cousin Bill Saxby was an Attorney General of the United States. He went to Ohio State. He didn't go to a top law school either. To become Attorney General of the United States doesn't necessarily mean you have to be one of the top legal minds in the country. It means you play politics like Bill Saxby did, because he was a congressman from Ohio, kissed the right tail and became the Attorney General. And that's Pam Bondi.
The libs know Pam Bondi because she was investigating Trump University for fraud. She'd signed on with the New York Attorney General to prosecute Trump. And then Trump sent her a $25,000 campaign contribution, and she ended the investigation.
Oh, yeah.
Well, welcome to politics. I mean, the thing is, this goes on both sides of the aisle. Now we're going to pick on one.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, it does. Come on.
I didn't see.
Also, who's this guy? Oh, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi. Let's talk about the wonderful lib wonderkin, Nancy Pelosi. All right. Her net worth is right now exceeds $200 million. How'd you get so rich when you're making $200,000? Her husband was an investor, and what he did is they invested using what they call conflicts of interest and what they call insider trading into stocks that she knew her Democrats would go vote for as favored children, and so they ratcheted their net worth up to $200 million bloody dollars. Okay, so when you have them, and you know what gripes me about her, Nancy Pelosi, because in my industry, which you'll find out, Kim, if you do well in insurance, they give you trips. They thought it was, quote, unethical to be given trips because it creates a conflict of interest. And I'm sitting there, here, you guys in Washington have the nerve to micromanage my insurance producers on bloody trips when you're sitting there exposed to huge conflicts of interest all the time, and you're not saying anything about it. So until you clean your act up, please don't tell an insurance producer that they can't go on a bloody trip.
So I want to bring something else up that's been concerning me, but all of the funding cuts that they're doing, like cancer research, I just want to tell everybody goodbye, because without it, I'm not going to live much longer. I have a very rare cancer, okay? One of the rarest in the world. And thanks to some research funding, most of it goes to the common cancers. But thanks to some of it, I'm able to survive and not have to spend all of my life savings and enjoy life a little bit, a little quality of life. So I just want you guys to think really long and hard about all of these cuts and the ripple effect, and think about why. Why do they want to cut the funding for people who are weak and sick? Well, this was a Hitler mentality. Get rid of the weak and sick. Kill them all. This is what Hitler did. Okay. So I know you guys don't like to compare him to Hitler. I know all of the media outlets have been told if you use the word Hitler, you will be banned. Not here. You can say it all you want. But I will tell you this. If you think about all of the cuts that he's doing, it's exactly the way the Communist Party do things to eliminate the weak people. So, I just want to, thank the supporters for, ensuring that the research that was keeping me alive is now gone. Love you all.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point and everything. Hey, Sasha, I just had a quick question for you and everything, because apparently
I'm not crying. I have a cold.
Emmanuel Macron gave a kind of a kiss off to Trump and everything, because he lit the Eiffel Tower in the colors of the Ukrainian flag as they had that tense diplomatic meeting and everything. So I just wondered your thoughts on that, because apparently the entire Eiffel Tower was lit in the color of the Ukrainian flag in a way to stand up to in support of Ukraine and its continued battle against Russia. Sasha?
Yeah, sorry. Once again, question about Eiffel Tower in Ukrainian flags.
Yes. Yes, I just was wondering if you thought that was a good move, because apparently that was a way that he was using it to kind of like basically F off Trump, because him and Trump, Macron and Trump had choice words with each other about the support of Ukraine.
Well, there is going to be a new European policy. It's about to be formatted, but it's on its way. Europe understands more and more that United States completely changing its approach to foreign policy, whether rightly or wrongly, but that's a fact of life, and you have to adjust to it. So there is no more that Europe can rely on U.S. Defensive capacities to protect Europe from Russians or whatever. So they have to do it themselves. Now, Europe is very rich and prosperous territory. As anybody who ever traveled to Europe, and not even to most leading and rich countries like France, UK, and others, but even in smaller and not so prosperous countries, can see a great difference between the lifestyle between Europe and United States. It's quite clear. It's much more comfortable. It's much more enticing. It's much more pleasure even just to be there without doing nothing. You can just sit there and sip coffee, and you see the fantastic architecture. You see people. You see life. You can't do that in the United States. It's impossible. Everybody is rushing to get to office or to work, shopping, doing it. It's just incredible. However, what I'd like to say is that Europeans are now getting together more and more so, and they are going to have their own system of defense against the Russians or whoever else is there. And guess what? Ukraine will play a major part of it, because Ukrainian army, with its incredible experience holding on against the Russian army for more than 3 years, no country in the world has this experience. Ukraine has. So obviously Ukraine will be a big part of the new, I don't know how it will be formulated, whether it will be a new military union beside NATO, or maybe even instead of NATO, because if the US already says that, well, you don't pay, we don't defend you, or so on. So Europeans may decide, you know what, enough. We are going to do it ourselves.
Yeah, they may decide that and everything. Hey, I see we got Jacoby, but I was actually going to direct this to Rick, but if Jacoby wants to jump in as well. But, there's all this talk about cuts and everything, and apparently there is a Republican senator that has come up with a new idea for a cut. So U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville suggested that the Pentagon be downsized to a 3-sided building instead of the 5, because that's what the Pentagon is. It's 5 sides and everything. So he's actually came up with a new word, because apparently he didn't know what a triangle was. So he said that they need to make it into a trigon, 3 sides instead of 5 sides, because the headquarters are way too big and overbloated. So what is our thoughts around, John, to totally change the size of something that has been that size forever?
Tommy Tuberville is known to libs as being America's dumbest senator, and he's an ex-football coach, and he wasn't even that great a football coach. He was like the 167th winningest coach. But this time, in his flailing around, he came up with something that's pretty funny. So kudos to America's dumbest senator.
I want to ask people, do you think Maine's response to Trump is the beginning of the United States dividing, and the states start keeping the federal taxes unto themselves and just put it back into their own state as
Well,
opposed to,
can you brief us on Maine's response and what the issue is, Kim?
Trump was talking about, I guess, the trans community and taking away certain sports, and they got into a fight. And I think the governor's response back was, well, you know what, you can cut us off from federal funding, but we're going to cut the federal taxes out of the paychecks. And so I'm thinking, why not just keep them for the state and just manage your state with your own funds and don't worry about it.
Okay, well, the Maine governor is an idiot. Okay, because first of all, the thing is, what they were doing, what the Maine idiot governor was doing was saying that, hey, men are able to play in women's sports, which I totally object to. And
I play in men's sports. Is there anything wrong with that? I play against men.
No, they do this in chess. If women want to play in the men's and the open division, no problem. But they don't allow men to play in women's sports. It's the right thing to do.
However,
Maine, in their stupid wokeness, decides that they have women.
Can we actually point out the fact that you're not allowing men to play in women's sports?
It's wrong.
You're not actually allowing. You're not allowing men to play in women's sports.
Trump said you're going to take away your funding.
Men are not playing in women's
it's your
sports.
personal choice.
No, it's not going to allow. It's a
Why
bad
not?
idea.
You don't want to play up against a
Take
man.
your woke agenda and go somewhere else. Thank you very much.
You're just stirring the pot again. You're not allowing
You're doing the same thing we did yesterday, one at a
I don't want
time.
to play a man. Personal choice.
No, if you want to play a man, that's okay. But I don't want my granddaughter
do or die situation.
with
It's not do or die.
because Jacoby identifies as a woman.
But it's not do or die.
So this is something that they're right, and you liberals are going to
against
continue
a
to
man.
lose this
Your
argument.
odds are you're not going to die unless you just
It
allow
doesn't
yourself
matter.
to be
It
trampled.
doesn't matter. It's not the right
choose.
thing to do, and you liberals are going to lose this issue.
Why is
every
it not
day you
right? Why not let people choose whether they want to play the
Because
sport?
because the thing is, the reason you have women's sports, the reason I like to see my girls play girls basketball.
Okay, so I'm going to chime in now because you're saying the same old redundant thing. Nick, you just keep saying the same old redundant thing. No, men are not playing women's sports. That's wrong. Also, here, Nick, let me tell you this. As a black person, you're wanting us to treat other people as second-class citizens. That is your argument. You're saying that we should treat other people as second-class citizens. That's what you want to do.
It's not second class.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Can transgender individuals playing sports, Nick? You're saying they cannot. Why? Because you're saying that they're second-class citizens. You are saying they're second-class citizens. That is your argument. You're saying they're second-class citizens.
No, I'm saying they're
That's
women.
what you said. That is your exact words.
Women need to be respected.
Your exact words were they're second-class citizens. You're calling transgender individuals not what they are and then dehumanizing them, now saying that they're second-class citizens, so they should not play sports. That's your argument. No, that's your argument, Nick. That is exactly what you said. That is your argument. That is your argument. I'm going to talk over you like you talked over everybody else, trying to say foul things about individuals because you keep saying the same argument that transgender women are just men. You're dehumanizing. So you're saying they're second-class citizens. You said they're second-class citizens. That's what
men that are pretending to be women. Please don't.
You're saying they're second-class citizens, and they don't deserve the rights that everybody else has. That's what you're saying. You are saying they're second-class citizens.
They have the rights to participate.
Nick, you said they can't play sports, so they're second-class citizens.
They can participate.
You're saying they're second-class citizens. That's all your argument is.
No. I didn't
that is your argument,
my friend. They have the right.
That is your. Can transgender women play sports? You're saying they cannot. You're saying that they should not be allowed to play sports or have the rights that they should that everybody else has. You're saying they're second-class citizens. That's your argument.
I have an idea. Everybody, come on, you guys.
Tired problem with that.
It's Rick.
I have an idea.
Come
on.
Please don't be a man. Don't jump into my grandchildren girls volleyball team and say identify.
You're still on the second-class citizen thing. Let Rick talk.
All right, I have an idea. So there are before Trump said you can't be trans and compete in sports, 10 out of 50,000 NCAA athletes were trans. So what about letting trans athletes compete if they're shitty at their sport? I went out for swim team, and I was by far the worst swimmer on the frickin' team. And if I'd been trans and gone out for the girls team, I probably would have been the shittiest swimmer on the girls team too. So no, I wouldn't be taking, ribbons or trophies away from anybody. And so I'm okay with letting crappy trans athletes compete.
Trans individuals who compete have to fit a particular set of rules that are put out there in terms of their testosterone levels. Yes, there's still science around that. Nick, let me finish, because now you're talking over me to talk about your second-class citizen argument. You're still going with the second-class citizen argument again. But again, so there has been studies, and there still continue to be studies and everything else. They have to hit a particular testosterone level, which one stinks because of the fact also you're making women prove that they are women. And that is a horrible thing to think about, because think about our society within itself. Women are always trying to have to prove themselves to men. And now we're putting that in sports as well, because we're saying that, you have to fit this testosterone level. Caster Cinema fell into that trap because her testosterone level was out of that. So she got disqualified from track meets. But what we can do, Rick, is just allow them to compete. They're already fitting these rules. And no, as you pointed out, they're not taking away medals and all this other stuff from individuals. There are less than 1% of trans athletes out there. You can't create an own league. Or are you going to do like Nick is asking and treat them like second-class citizens and tell them, hey, they can't compete in anything because of the fact that, my sensitive sensitivities are being struck because I think it's not. Yeah, that's your religious whatever. No, that should not be what it is. And this whole second-class citizen argument needs to stop.
You said they're less than 1% of athletes, which is not exactly correct. They're less than 1/5 of 1/10 of 1%. Right. One athlete in 5,000 is trans. 1 in 10,000 is trans and competitive. And for the people who are like good enough to win as a trans athlete, then you got to take another look, and maybe like if you prohibited trans athletes who can win, you'd be prohibiting 4 or 5 athletes out of the 50,000 in the NCAA. And there's no room in the current debate for any subtlety.
No, so, I don't have any problem with them competing in men's sports. Okay, so let's just make that perfectly clear. But I do have a real problem with them competing in women's sports, and so does 90% of Americans. And so that's one reason the Democrats keep losing, is because they're trying to shove trans in front of everybody's faces, and we're objecting to it. We're not interested in that. Even though it's like it's like 1 out of 5,000 people. It's a very distinct minority, but I'm not going to discriminate against them. They're full free to participate in men's sports.
Here's another thing you could do. Say now it wouldn't work for every sport, but say it's a track event, and a trans athlete takes second place. Yeah. So, the first place gets gold, a trans athlete gets silver, the third place runner also gets silver, and then the fourth place gets bronze.
And you don't really even have a right to compete in sports. I know I had a real problem. Part of the reason I was a good chess player is
Nick, let me get you a question. Let me get you saying the same thing. Let me get my question.
And hence, because I was asthmatic and compromised, I wasn't allowed to compete in sports. So let's just get real here.
Let's get real, man. Let me ask you the question. Let me ask you the question.
A right to compete in sports. And that's the reality.
Nick, your argument is still treating them like second-class. Your argument is still treating trans individuals like second-class citizens. Let me ask you this question: are you wanting trans men? Hold on, Nick, hold on. Are you wanting trans men who've been taking testosterone now to compete in women's sports?
No, I didn't say that. I said they could.
So then now what are you doing? Trans men cannot compete? So again, your argument, you're always thinking about people are going to protect the women. Trans women cannot compete in women's sports, but now trans men, you're saying have to compete in women's sports.
Dude, the chess players who are very smart.
Nick, you're going on some tangent that we don't care about. I asked you a direct question. I asked you a direct question, Nick. Do you want trans men to compete in women's sports?
Hold on, both of you.
No.
Hold on, both of you. Because I'm understanding you correctly. Hold on, Nick. If I'm understanding both of you, because that's that whole participation argument and everything. And there used to be a requirement for people to be involved in athletics in schools. I mean, that used to be one of the requirements for graduation was PE, that you had to take a PE course. Not sure if that's still the case, but I have to ask my nephews and everything. But that used to be a requirement that you had to take a PE course of some sort and everything. And you were saying that you did not have to deal with that because you were asthmatic. But I know back in the 70s and the 80s, that was actually a requirement.
Mark, that doesn't hit the question that I'm asking at all. Yeah, but even still, Terry brings up a great point. We're arguing about less than 1% of the population while people are dying. And then on top of that, Nick, you still never answered. Should trans men have to compete in women's sports? According to your logic, that answer is yes.
No, trans men do not have the right.
Sorry, then you're not consistent. You're making a BS second-class citizen argument. That is your argument. You just nullified your whole argument. You just nullified your whole argument.
So we're arguing about 4 competitive trans athletes in the NCAA. 4 people. And we're spending all this time and all this yelling. Let's move on to something else.
Actually, that's a good idea because this thing about the health deal, okay, with the pulling of the funding, and also the latest thing, which was incredibly stupid by RFK, and not only pulling cancer research, every year during this time they meet to put together the flu vaccine. I don't know if this is RFK's behind it, but if he is, and he probably is, they decide not to do that. Okay, well, let me tell you what happens when they don't meet for the flu vaccine, because they put together a flu vaccine that comes out in the fall so that people like me and a lot of other people that are immunocompromised get to take the flu vaccine so we don't bloody die. This moron RFK, who should resign because he's incompetent, okay, decided not to pursue this, which is going to cost more lives than it did this year, which 65,000 people died of the flu this year. The highest in 15 years. Your stupid media, which is owned by the liberals who are incredibly dumb, or the conservatives who won't report it, do not report how bad this really is. The liberal media doesn't report it, they're dumb. The conservative media doesn't report it because they're compromised. We're going to report it. It is bad. And RFK needs to get out of there. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have a clue. He's not a medical doctor. And he's screwing everything up. And we need to keep asking. I ask for his resignation every day. And
the same can be said for half of the cabinet, including the FBI directors and everything, because half of people probably need to resign and be not in office.
We had our first measles death in a decade, and it's actually exploding in Texas right now. Last I remember, and Rick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're at 120 plus cases. And yep, so it's exploding. And he was asked,
you got to multiply that by 4 because that's only the known cases, and they're saying.
And he was RFK was asked about that in the cabinet meeting, and he blew it off. He said, "Well, measles happens."
Yeah, he says that happens. Of course, it happens when you got a moron like you heading up the Health and Human Resources. You're an environmental attorney, you moron. Okay, look, you got your political payoff. Trump paid you off. You're incompetent. Recognize your incompetency. Resign and let somebody good take your place, please.
We have.
I'm waiting for Trump to ask for his resignation. He's got his political payoff. Get rid of him.
But now Texas, the anti-vaccine state, is now saying they're going to go get vaccines for their kids for measles. And maybe this is a good conversation for Dr. Patmos, because this is going to be another bad situation if we don't get it under control. Yeah, Sasha's had his hand up. Sasha.
Yes, Sasha.
Well, I would like to make your attention to something which is very few people are aware, is that Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has gained access to a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development system containing confidential personal information about hundreds of thousands of alleged victims of housing discrimination, including victims of domestic violence. Access to the system is typically strictly limited because it contains medical records, financial files, documents that may list social security numbers and other private information. DOJ sought access and was granted last week, according to information reviewed by ProPublica and two officials familiar with the matter. This is just the latest collection of sensitive personal information that DOJ has tried to access in recent weeks. It has also sought personal taxpayer data kept by IRS and information on Social Security benefit recipients, and it attempted to enter the Treasury Department's payment system. DOJ's stated mission is to modernize government technology and cut excessive or improper spending. The administration of President Donald Trump has argued that DOJ needs direct access to such system to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that what's really happening is that an elected official with a bunch of his 19 to 25 years old guys have access to everything that no one else has any access, all private information. And is this something what America is all about? I can't imagine something like that would happen in Canada or any other civilized country. I don't understand how.
I don't think anybody voted for that, Sasha, and everything. But they also hold on, they also named a acting director that nobody knew that she was the acting director because everybody thought Elon Musk was running this. But apparently, Amy Gleason, who apparently when she was named was in Mexico on vacation, is supposed to be the acting administrator. But apparently, they named her, and she's sitting there going like, "I didn't even know I had a job."
And she was named acting director so DOJ can avoid lawsuits and Elon Musk would not have to be go through any vetting or anything else. This is just highway robbery straight in front of people's faces. And when you say that they didn't vote for this, no, they did. Donald Trump said it on the campaign trail that he was going to throw Elon Musk, an unelected official, ahead of all this. So yeah, it's highway robbery. It's they're gaining all this access. Check this out. This was another thing that actually fits into that. Because of HUD and who HUD deals with, and they've already stopped all civil rights cases. They're already the only civil rights case that they did not stop is this white lady who's actually suing because she's saying that her civil rights were affected. They're not stopping that one.
The reverse discrimination case.
Exactly. So what's about to happen, especially because many women and black people or minorities were kicked out of high-ranking military positions, welcome to the Republic of Gilead, everybody. The Handmaid's Tale is about to become a real thing.
Hey, Jacoby,
the reason why DOJ has all this power is because Joe Biden put us
regularly. Hold on,
more in debt.
A person we have on this show regularly, his office is about to be run by somebody from North Carolina, and apparently he was asked whether he would be loyal He was asked whether he would be loyal to Trump or not. So Dan Bishop, a former U.S. representative from this area and everything, is going to be heading, I believe this is David Walker's office, the Office of Management and Budget, because he's going to be the deputy director and everything. And he's asked, I think it was recently, a couple of days ago, whether he was going to be loyal to Trump and everything. But he'll be running the office, or at least second in command, that if I remember correctly, wasn't that David Walker's office?
But even worse,
he was head of the GAO. He was head of the GAO in Office of Control. He was the Comptroller General of the U.S. It's a little different than Office of Management and Budget, but please, libs. Okay, your friend Joe Biden spending
That
money.
has nothing to do with Joe Biden.
Internet
This has nothing to do with Joe Biden. Nothing to do with Joe Biden. Nothing to do with Joe Biden. Nothing. Absolutely nothing to do with Joe Biden. Has Donald Trump ripped you off? You're blaming Joe Biden.
Some guy says, look,
it's nothing to do with Joe Biden.
You've got to stop.
I want to ask you guys.
Interest on it.
Yeah.
So give him his power that's due.
I have a question for Nick.
Waste, fraud, and abuse.
Nick,
Nick,
I have a question for you. Legally, right now, they're doing a lot of interesting things, but effective immediately, all college financial aid programs, scholarships, prize housing, and graduation ceremonies that help Black students are now banned and illegal. Is that true?
Yes, that got put out. I've already read that. Yeah, it's not all. It's not all yet. There is actually a scholarship for HBCU students.
Are they all canceled for Black?
Not all yet. They want to move to what they call a colorblind society rather than the racist.
That's a racist society. Colorblindism is another form of racism.
I'm asking about the word. I'm asking about wording, just like the pregnancy laws right now. Everybody thinks the pregnancy
the Democrats promote racism and sexism.
I'm asking about wording. Does the wording say that Black people are illegal to join in the celebration of graduation?
So what it is that the actual scholarship that got put up. The scholarship that got stopped, yes, it dealt with HBCUs as well as lower income families, which mainly deal with Black people. What people forget to people get so accustomed to the new wording and they're afraid to look at the dog whistles that are there, how woke DEI and all these things have become dog whistles, and actually they are used to talk about Black people. That's where they use now. So when he stopped that actual that scholarship that was dealing with HBCUs specifically, people are glossing that over and ignoring the fact that's what he's doing. He's taking away money now from HBCUs, and that is going to continue to where HBCUs will be so underfunded they cannot live and maintain.
But I want people to listen to the wording, just like with the pregnancy laws that they got going on in South Carolina. The wording is very imperative. The wording of that law and whatever Trump is imposing, does it specifically state that Black people, it's illegal for them to celebrate and graduate and be part of graduation ceremonies? I know it's saying, they're taking away the funding and all this other stuff and making it colorblind, but Nick, does that wording specifically say Black people are not allowed to participate in?
How would I know? I have no idea what wording you're discussing.
Because that's very particular to me about wording.
Less racist.
Well, the thing is, Tim, what you're stating
is astronomical.
No. You're doing this whole Democrat Party has nothing to do with it. The Democrat Party is not pulling funding from HBCUs. That's the Trump and this whole party now. So, Kim, when you're talking about specific wording, you're never going to get the exact word. Why? Because just like Trump avoids and uses that's a real nice house you have there, isn't it? That's basically a threat that's going to come to your house. He's never going to actually threaten you.
45 seconds left. Let me go back to as long as RFK and Trump are in office, we're going to have more than 50,000 flu deaths a year. The deal is with the flu virus, these little particles have little knobs on them. We knew that from COVID. And every year they have to do a ton of research and look at sewage water from all across the U.S. to figure out, to make the best guess as to what shape virus to vaccinate people against. It takes a ton of research, a ton of mathematical modeling. And if you fire all those people and then you tell half of America not to get vaxxed, we're going to have vaccines that are less effective because you fired the people who are the best at guessing what's coming up, and you've got half the population saying F it to vaccines. yeah, so from now on, 50, 60,000, 70,000 flu deaths every winter.
On that note, we're going to get on out of here. Definitely,
Yeah.
people are loving the scan and all along those lines. I just learned something lightly that I'm just going to mention very quickly and everything. Apparently, Kim, me and Dan Bishop, that conservative, actually share the same birthday. We're both on July 1st and everything like that. So I didn't realize
Well,
that.
you
until I was
share
looking
the
at
birthday
record.
with a lot of amazing people, as we discussed. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Stay healthy so you stay wealthy. We'll be talking about that in the very near future. I look forward to seeing you.
And we have World Politics, and we have Barbara Smith coming up at noon. So we've got, in the medicine show as well. Or actually, today is Thursday, so it'll be the VC Masters of the show. So we got some great programming coming your way on the rest of the day.